Welcome back, guys. Let's continue on with my Texas Chainsaw Massacre reviews with Texas Chainsaw Massacre 4, The Next Generation. And before I talk about the actual movie, I want to have Derek come on from Derek's Horror Corner and do his segment where we have done a collab with every Texas Chainsaw Massacre film so far, and we will continue to do that with all of the films. But we have done the first three and then this one. So, Derek from Derek's Horror Corner, take it away.
Hey Corey, thanks for allowing me to collab with you on yet another review in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. This time we'll be reviewing Texas Chainsaw Massacre 4, The Next Generation. So here's kind of my brief thoughts on this movie, which I've only seen one time. So a couple years back, I was kind of a completionist and I wanted to see all these movies. And I'd kind of heard that it was bad, but I went into this movie not knowing a lot about it, and I really did not like this movie. My wife even watched it with me, and she said, quote, it's one of the worst movies that she's ever seen. And I would agree with that to an extent. Like, the plot of the movie is just a mess with, like, what's going on. Like, it messes with the continuity. It's like a soft reboot. You have, like, the government conspiracy angle that's thrown in at the end. It's really weird. The story's a mess. Leatherface dressing like a woman and going trans is just annoying as well. It's not that Leatherface is cross-dressing, because Leatherface does that when he puts the grandma mask in the first one. It's just that they sissify Leatherface and make him not scary at all. Like in Halloween Resurrection when Busta Rhymes beats up Michael Myers. You never take the intimidation out of your villain in a slasher movie, and Leatherface is just not just a joke, but an annoying joke in this movie. That's probably my biggest problem with this movie. I also don't like the cast as well. Renee Zellweger's like a big name. I believe that's who the main girl is. Like I said, I've only seen this movie one time and I haven't watched it yet. I'll watch it later tonight. She's not that great in this movie, and I think she's kind of an overrated actress anyway. The only acting performance, really honestly, the only positive about this movie is Matthew McConaughey. Like, you can watch this movie and you can tell, like, he has got talent. He went all in at this role, took the role seriously, and he is a good actor, and I've seen a ton of his movies, and I love him. He's such a good actor, and he's the only thing in this movie that makes it worthwhile. He is hilarious. His stupid remote-controlled leg, that's ridiculous. I do like his performance, so I'm kind of wondering when I watch this movie, is it going to be a so bad it's good movie for me? Because I went in not knowing anything about it, and I'm wondering if I might like it better since I actually know what to expect, and I'm wondering if it won't offend me as much. So hop on over to my channel and check out my review, which I've already posted, because me and Corey post our reviews at the same time. And again, Corey, thanks for letting me collab with you on this review.
Thank you, Derek. Now, let's talk about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Next Generation. Before I talk about the actual movie, I want to say, what is with this artwork right here? What is with the way that this movie looks in terms of the artwork and the marketing? They made it look like this movie would be like a new generation, the next generation of kids that would become Leatherface's kind of either family, or they take the mantle. Because the picture of this, presumably Renee Zellweger in the poster, with the chainsaw, with the mask on, it has nothing to do with the movie. There's nothing that happens in the movie where it even implies that Renee Zellweger or any of these young characters would take over Leatherface and be part of his family. I don't get what the marketing is for the poster, and this poster specifically looks just like you're thinking this is going to be about a new set of characters that become part of Leatherface's family, but that doesn't even happen. It's literally the first movie again where these kids go and get attacked and killed by Leatherface. It doesn't have what the poster is implying, so it's really weird. With the poster art, it just doesn't look like, it doesn't make any sense. It's like a marketing ploy that was never I don't know if they even thought about doing it in the movie, but the marketing ploy for the posters, it's a cool poster, but that I put in here, but it still is not the movie. That's not what happens in the movie. Now, the movie itself, this is a pseudo reboot to the first movie, where it is technically a sequel. It is technically the fourth Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, and it was originally called The Return of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is a cool title, actually. But it's a pseudo sequel where parts 2 and 3 do exist, even though there's so many continuity things that don't even make any sense. Like at the end of the movie, at the end of this movie, where you see Sally, like when Jenny sees Sally at the end of the movie from the first movie, they say in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 that she died in 1977. So it's like they didn't watch the last movies or the last couple, because they did that in 3 as well, where Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 had a lot of random shit, like the family that you never even knew existed in the third movie. And in this one, we got another family that we didn't know existed. New characters that are not even referenced in any of the other movies. At least in the first 2 movies, we had the same cast. In 3 and in 4, we have different sets of cannibalistic families that are not referenced and are gone after one movie. It's so weird. So I really thought that was a strange thing that they do with this movie, because it is technically a sequel, but it is also a reboot, where it is 1996. They state that it has been since 1970, like it happened in 1973, the first movie, and then they said 2 events that kind of connect to it, even though of course they do. And then the fourth movie, in terms of the intro, it says 5 years have gone on since the third movie, and then this happens in 1996. So it's happening in this time, and it's doing the same thing as the first movie, where these kids go and encounter Leatherface and his cannibalistic family, but they're like prom goers instead of like just kids on the road, like seeing like their grandfather's farm in the first movie. And again, I want to bring up again the thing about this being a reboot, but it's also a sequel, because in the intro it says that parts 2 and 3, like 2 other yet apparently related incidents, is what they said in the intro, which I thought was weird. It was like they were insulting the 2 movies before this. It reminded me of like Jaws the Revenge, where Jaws the Revenge ignored Jaws 3. But we got 2 shitty movies there, and it ignores it to make it look like it's better. And this one does the same thing, where Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 is way better than 4. Even though 4, this one right here, is entertaining, 2 is great. I love 2. But yeah, it's so weird that they purposely jab at like the 2 other movies, like they're apparently unrelated. They're apparently related is literally the word they use for the intro. That's really weird. And it's weird because this movie also had a failed history of like being released. It was originally going to be released in 1994 as The Return of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but then it was shelved, and then Matthew McConaughey and Renee Zellweger became big, quote unquote, because they weren't big stars yet. They were in like, I think McConaughey was in A Time to Kill in '96, and Zellweger was in Jerry Maguire, and like those were movies that made them pop, but like they weren't as big as they are now. But they were apparently big enough that Sony, Columbia Pictures, who distributed this movie, waited until '96 and then just put the movie out, falsely like made it to where they both were the top stars, obviously, of the movie because they became big, but in a way where the actors didn't agree with this and they didn't get any consent on this. They were just like Sony made the movie and put it out whenever these stars were big, even though McConaughey definitely is ashamed of this movie. He never, like, it's weird because Zellweger, I think in interviews, said that she is proud she was in it, and it was a interesting movie, like, that she did. Like, it's such a different one than all the other films she's done. But McConaughey in particular didn't like really didn't like this movie, and I think it's kind of like with Leonardo DiCaprio in like Critters 3, where like people mention it to him and he'll just say, I don't know what you're talking about, because he just doesn't, he's ashamed of it. I feel like McConaughey is probably the same way in this as well. But again, the studio put out this movie later because they got bigger, but they didn't agree with it. So it's just it's kind of insulting on their part. And this apparently in '94 got really great word of mouth from film festivals. People thought this was really, really terrifying. I don't know where they got that from, but that brought intrigue whenever the movie was being released, like fully in '96, and it was only released to a set of theaters. It wasn't released wide. It was more definitely to video more than theatrical. And now the actual movie, when it starts, I thought it was funny how, again, we get that intro that talks about 2 and 3 kind of existing, and then we get a scene of, like, Ginny, the main character, Renee Zellweger, her and her mom is taking pictures of her for prom, and whenever she takes the camera shot, the flash, it makes that noise in the first movie where it shows the dead, decomposing bodies, which is really disturbing and creepy in the first one. In this one, it shows that, but it's just dumb. It's like, why'd you put that sound effect in like a moment of happiness? Like, it doesn't make any sense in a moment of like taking prom pictures. I don't get that. And they do that again later in the movie whenever they're driving and like there's a flash of a car and it makes that noise again, which is a creepy ass noise, but it's just used very poorly in this movie, as opposed to the first one where it's used fantastically. Now I want to mention this character first off. There's a character named Heather in this movie who is the friend of Ginny's, and this actress is god awful. Like, I don't know, I bet I had seen her and stuff after this, I just don't know if I have, but this actor is horrible. There's a line, one of the first lines when she appears in the movie, where she says, and she literally stutters and says this like 5 times, she says, it's just, she's such a bitch. Like, it's just a line like that, where like she says it's like 5 times, and it's like, did they not have money to do another take? Because obviously that she forgot her lines, this actress. And then whenever they start driving around, like the Heather character literally says a really stupid line where she's like, hey, I thought of something really funny. What if we got into a car crash or into a wreck and we died? They could write a song about us. And I guess that's funny in context. Like, it is a funny line because it's so really incredibly stupid. But it just, I don't know, like, it's a weird line for a character that already has really bad performance, and I hate saying that it's a really bad performance, but it is terrible. And the Barry character, her boyfriend, is excruciating. He is annoying. I wanted him to die quick, and he does die relatively quick. I like that. I like that he didn't last long, but he was obnoxious as fuck, and he bothered me. But then we get this awesome scene from this character who knows what type of movie she is in, and this character, or this actress who plays Darla, I don't know her real name, but the Darla character is fantastic in this movie. I love this character. She is so hilarious. She's this real estate agent that, like, it just is randomly close to the house of the cannibals, of the Sawyer family, and she plays like Drayden Sawyer does in the first movie, where he's the gas station guy, and like you realize he's with them, and it's the same thing with her again because it's a remake. It's like she's her pseudo remake. She's the one who is on their side too, but she looks normal and acts normal for the most part. She's over the top, but she's really funny. There's a hilarious line where she's talking to Heather, and she just says, "Why do blondes stick their heads out a window to get refills?" And then Heather just says, "I don't get it." And then literally Darla says, "Airheads, duh." And like she just like tilts her head sideways. And it cracked me up how this actress who plays Darla was really, really genuinely entertaining and fun. I really liked her performance. And there was a scene where she's just talking to them, and then randomly there's a guy like looking at them, I guess, and she says, "We see you, you old fart," and like the guy just walks away. It was really funny, and then we get to the house like the first movie, and I will give this a positive because the house in this movie looks so much like the original movie. Like, it looks like they used a lot of things to make this feel legit like the first movie in terms of the house. Because in the second movie they didn't have the house; they had the underground tunnel, the carnival. And in the third one they had a house, but it didn't feel as much the same as the first one. It was a house. And in this one, it felt the same, like with how everything was placed, how they had the room where the hook was, how they had, how they had like everything placed. It felt like it was the same house from the first movie, and I thought that was a really cool authenticity thing. I did like that in this movie. I thought that was a pretty awesome thing. So the house was very, very close to the first one, which was really cool. And there's a scene where I guess you're implying that the Heather character is so dumb, but also even a dumb person would understand and sense a person right behind him, but right behind her, because Darla is sitting on a porch swing, just sitting right here. Right behind her, Leatherface is literally standing above her, shadow in her face. She doesn't notice him, and he's got shadow covering her face. Like, it's literally, no one would not notice that. That is ridiculous. I guess it's implying that our character is really dumb, but it doesn't make any logical sense. Someone would, you would have to have heard his breathing. He was right there. You would have felt his breathing on you if you were right there, even if he was taller. That's ridiculous. That she's just sitting there in the porch swing, and he's just there, literally right, not even an inch behind her, and she doesn't notice him. And then we get to a point where it literally is a remake, where Barry and Heather are killed in the same way that the two characters first die in the original, where the guy walks in, gets bludgeoned. He does that too, with a sledgehammer, and then Heather goes in, and then she gets attacked, and then she gets the hook in her back. Just like the first movie. It's literally the same thing with those kills. They're literally the exact same thing, with the sledgehammer and the hook. So I've noticed there are a lot of similarities with that, like with the Darla character, where she is Drayden Sawyer, because she is the character that you don't, she's the unsuspecting character. You think that there's something fine with her, but no, she's part of the family too, but she looks normal, just like Drayden Sawyer did in the first one. Now let's talk about Matthew McConaughey as Vilmer. This is something that everybody, whether you love or hate this movie, everybody talks about Matthew McConaughey in this movie. And maybe that's why he's ashamed of it, because he is so ridiculously over the top that you can just tell that he, like Dennis Hopper from Part 2, really does have great acting abilities. He's just being silly and over the top. And it really, to me, works here. I think he is genuinely funny, genuinely crazy, and just insane in this movie, and he goes balls to the wall all out, and I love that. And honestly, whenever you first see him in the movie, whenever he picks up Ginny, he is legitimately scary, and actually he does, like he's in the truck with her and he says a lot of weird things, and Ginny's just like, I want to get out of the car now, get me out of here, let me out of here. And like, he's like, you haven't seen anything yet, like you're like, and then, like, he says a lot of creepy things at first, and I like that the beginning, when you meet him, he's really disturbing and actually really scary. But as the movie goes along, he is insanely just crazy, and it's hilarious. But at the beginning, I didn't think about that on rewatching it until I rewatched it, that he is scary when he first appears. Like, he is effective. So I like that a lot. And Ginny, Renee Zellweger's character, is honestly really fine. Like, I like this character. I thought she was actually a good final girl in this movie. She just has a lot of shit around her. Like, this character and Renee Zellweger, her performance is good. Like, I do like this character, and I thought she was fine. again, she's a good final girl, but she just is around a movie that is ridiculed and hated by a lot of people, and I understand why. Now, again, going back to this being a reboot or a remake, they do the same thing where this is the fourth thing. I guess that's the same thing as the original that I pointed out in this review. Leatherface chases her around the house, chases her out the window. She flies out the window. She chases her through the woods. It's the same thing with Ginny being chased by Leatherface in the first one. It's literally the same thing. And then, of course, she finds the unsuspecting person who's part of the family, Darla, in this version. And they literally copy the movie verbatim in a lot of instances. It's not the exact same movie, but there are sequences that are the same. Again, just using the plot points of Darla as unsuspecting, or having the two characters get killed on a hook, or a hook and a sledgehammer, and Ginny being chased around. Like, they really work in that way. It really is effective in a way where it's really effective in a way in the first movie, but in this one, it's just kind of like, I guess you could call it cheap. It's not awful, but it's just like, it's the same thing as the first movie with all these things. And there's a scene where, again, I want to bring this up because Ginny gets tied up and put in a garbage bag and put in the back of a trunk by Darla, who, again, is awesome. I love this character. Darla, she goes and gets pizza, and literally Ginny's just screaming, kicking the car, and you can hear her while Darla's talking to the guy at the pizza drive-thru. And the guy literally goes, "Hey, I think there's something in the back of your car." And you could hear Ginny, like, screaming, like, for help. And this guy nonchalantly says, "Oh, I think there's something in the back of your car." And I love Darla's reaction. She just says, "Really? You want to see?" And it's just so funny. And I love too how after this, like, Ginny's still tied up, and Darla goes back there to the trunk and says, "Hey, you better stop talking or I'm gonna tape your mouth shut." And then Ginny just says, "I can't breathe." And then she's like, "Well, do you want me to put a hole in this bag so you can breathe?" She's like, "Yes." And she puts her hole in the bag, so, like, she puts her in the back of the trunk again. After she hits her a lot, and then, like, kicks Ginny a lot, and Ginny's like, "Ow, you're hurting me." Or no, maybe that's Heather, actually. But still, either way. And I also haven't mentioned Leatherface yet. In this movie, he's really forgettable. Weirdly enough, like, the first movie, I think, is the only one that really makes Leatherface memorable. In this one, he's just kind of forgettable, where he's there. I mean, he doesn't have much to do besides dress up like a tranny on like the first movie, but, like, it made more sense in the first movie, and it's not as much important in the first movie. And before the makeup is put on him, he looks terrible, like, with the mask, like the skin mask. It doesn't look anything like a skin mask. It looks like a actual mask you buy at a party shop. Like, it's a bad mask. And he actually, weirdly enough, looks better with makeup on. It's strange. They put more budget into the makeup mask than, like, the actual mask. Now, again, talking about Vilmer, he's awesome. The way he puts his fingers into Ginny's teeth like this, and he just starts, like, holding him and, like, talking to her and, like, screaming to her and screaming nonsense is awesome. And then, just as the movie goes along, I'm just sitting there with my mouth open, like, oh my god, like, this is insane. And he just keeps saying stupid random crap, like, on purpose, but it's funny. It's just over the top and ridiculous. And the movie gets crazier and crazier because, again, Leatherface puts on makeup and cross-dresses. But to be fair, I guess they did do that in the first one, but it's not as important, like I just said before. And then we have another dinner scene with Ginny tied up, like the first two movies, where a whole new family's there, a lot of dead bodies, and then Grandpa's there again, which he exploded in part 2. Then in part 3 he's there, and then part 4 he's there, and he actually moves more in this one, like he's getting younger in each movie. He even gets up and walks around. I don't get the keep putting Grandpa into these movies and making him more and more younger. Like, I mean, he looks older, but he walks around, he moves more. He didn't move in the first movie. In the second movie, he did a little bit. The third one, he did more, and then this one, he walks around. It's just really stupid. And then we get a random man come into the house, and then he looks like this government agent, which he is later, you realize, and he goes up to Ginny and licks her face, just goes and licks her face all over. For what the fuck ever reason, he just does that. What in the fuck? And then there's the chase that is like the first movie where Leatherface and Vilmer chase Ginny outside, but then there's an old couple in an RV, and then I lose it because Leatherface is chasing Ginny, and Ginny's knocking on the RV, and then the old lady's like, hey, look, there's a lady. And then they look outside and they're like, hurry up, Bill, or whatever his name is. They're like, this girl's about to get killed with the chainsaws. They grab her, take her into the van, but then the van flips over. And then this fucking random plane is just there for no reason. And it kills Vilmer. Like, it just hits his head. And then he has blue blood. Like, it's weird. Like, it's just on the ground. Like, it's a blue-looking blood. Maybe it's just because it's in the dirt. But it was just so weird and so random. And then we get this weird-ass explanation, which I sat there like, what in the fuck? Like, this is just so stupid. But there's an explanation that this government agent told Ginny that this was a moment of cleansing you, like trying to, I don't even know how to explain it. And like, they did a government cover-up thing, and the family even mentioned that earlier. And then Ginny is at the hospital, and then she is talking to the police, and then what do you know? Sally just comes coming by, like this guy is pushing her on a gurney, and she just looks at Ginny. Ginny looks at her. Sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied. Ginny looks at her. They both give a long look at each other, and then you see her going down the hallway, and then the doctor or the policeman's like, "Miss, do you know that girl? Miss." And then it just cuts back to Leatherface doing the chainsaw thing like the first movie. And it ends. And it's funny because the girl who played Sally is named anonymous in the credits, like girl on gurney, anonymous. Why? Or a girl on stretcher, anonymous. Like, it's why? What's the point of that? And like, it just ends in a insanely stupid thing where I don't even get what even happened. So overall, this one was just insanely stupid, like stupid ass shit. Like that guy walking in, licking Ginny on the face for no reason. What? And McConaughey with his robot leg, with the remote control. I didn't even mention that earlier. What? It's just insane. It is one of the most insane sequels I've ever seen to a horror movie, but it is interesting and fascinating. I really enjoy it. So, it's not a good movie. It's awful, but it's entertainingly awful. It's so great. Especially Darla and McConaughey. They are great. And random ass moments. Funny moments like that random plane just appearing just in the field with them being chased. What? So, I really love this, even though it's a terrible movie. It is so fun, so entertaining. Thank you, Derek, so much for doing another collab with me, and see you on the next one. And thank you guys so much for watching, and tell me down below what you think of this movie. And thank you so much.